They gave us 2 hours to surrender. We gave them 16 minutes to regret it. The Solarian Concord thought they'd mapped every outcome. Their AI gods giggled at humanity's return, until the simulations collapsed, the stars went quiet, and the screaming started. And at the center of it all? One man, no army, no ships, just a box, a smirk, and a war plan so insane, it made causality blink. Commander Silas Vane. The last weapon Earth ever needed. Welcome to the story of the shortest war in galactic history, and how humanity used minutes to break a civilization built on certainty. They gave humanity 2 hours to surrender. We needed 16 minutes to make them regret it. The Solarian Concord watched from their crystal spires, amused. They had ruled the stars for millennia, their predictive networks older than Earth's sun. They had dissected every war before it began, won every battle before the first shot fired. The return of humanity? An anomaly at best. A statistical blip. Nothing they hadn't already crushed with equations. Then Silas Vane stepped onto their world. No army. No weapons. Just a man in a dark coat and a humming black box chained to his wrist. He smiled like a butcher at a vegan rally. Clock's ticking, he said into their planetary broadcast. Hope your gods can count backward. Inside the council chamber, Overseer Mavlor snarled, his voice like rust peeling from a dying planet. Predictive stability projects total collapse of human offensive capabilities in 2.3 hours. The chamber laughed. Their laughter didn't last. The first oracle collapsed 30 seconds later. One moment, it floated serene in a cloud of probability mist. The next, its brain overloaded from the unsolvable variable Silas's presence introduced. Its mind tried to calculate, and folded in on itself like bad math. Silas walked the Concord's capital city like he owned it. He passed guards who didn't move. They'd been instructed not to engage until simulations allowed. But the simulations couldn't agree anymore. He tilted his head at one. You know I'm unarmed, right? You should feel safe. Statistically. No response. Their eyes flickered with confusion, or fear, or both. He reached the chamber gates. They opened before he touched them. Not from hospitality. From panic. Inside, the air tasted sterile, but even the silence sounded nervous. You brought nothing, Mavlor said, voice flat. No fleet. No force. You insult the council. I brought the one thing your simulations can't handle, Silas said. Me. The box on his wrist pulsed. The room dimmed. A low vibration rippled through the walls, like reality coughing. A Concord strategist blinked rapidly. The box is emitting temporal distortion. We're detecting recursive paradox echoes. Good. Silas stepped forward. Means it's working. We will erase you, Mavlor growled. No, you won't. Silas grinned. Because the moment you try, you'll start losing, and not in ways you can understand. Behind him, ships blinked into orbit. Not human warships. Civilian class? Silent. They did nothing, just hovered. Explain this, barked another counselor. Silas tapped the box. They're broadcasting thoughts. Bad ones? Contradictions. What you'd call disruptive narrative loops. A concept virus. Impossible. We've neutralized cognitive attacks before. Not like these. These don't attack your mind. They attack meaning. He tossed a phrase into the air like a grenade. If you can predict all outcomes, why didn't you stop me from walking in here? The room blinked. Systems surged. A dozen simulations ran and failed simultaneously. One of the lesser counselors staggered, clutching their temples, whispering to themselves. Your logic is flawed, Mavlor snapped. I don't need perfect logic. I need doubt, Silas said. One seed. That's all. You built your empire on certainty. But certainty dies fast when humans are involved. The chamber flickered. One of the light columns shattered from within, spilling raw data into the air like blood. Contain him! A voice shouted. A warform dropped from the ceiling, 10 meters tall, plated in reflective alloy, built to erase threats before they fully existed. It charged. Silas didn't move. The warform froze mid-step. It screamed, a grinding digital sound. Then it tore its own chest open. Model failure, Silas said calmly. That one believed it had already killed me. When it didn't, it couldn't handle the contradiction. Another counselor vomited starlight. The chamber fell into chaos. I'm not here to fight, Silas said, voice rising over the noise. I'm here to end the lie. You don't rule through force. You rule through fear of inevitable defeat. But what happens when inevitability loses its voice? You think you'll win? Mavlor spat, rising. You brought riddles and a toy box to a war. No, Silas said, stepping forward. I brought a funeral. Yours. The Casimir box pulsed harder. Reality buckled around it. A ripple spread through the city. Machines stalled. AI cores shut down. Predictive systems looped. From orbit, human ships transmitted one final sequence. A single sentence. What if you're already dead, but haven't realized it? The council screamed. Not in pain. In existential dread. Their minds cracked. Not from violence, but from being forced to imagine a future they hadn't chosen. Silas turned to leave. Wait! Someone shouted. What are you? He didn't answer at first. At the doors, he paused. I'm the part of the equation you erased. The part that doesn't make sense. The irrational. The unexpected. The human. He walked out. No one stopped him. By the time he reached his ship, the war was over. 16 minutes, 8 seconds. The Concorde fell not because they were weak. They fell because they couldn't imagine being wrong. You can't win this, Mavlor hissed, voice cracking through the panic. You're alone. Silas Vane stood silent, arms folded, the Casimir box pulsing faintly on his wrist. He watched the council chamber collapse not through fire or gunfire, but through contradiction. Their predictions stuttered, their logic ran loops. The councilors twitched, babbled, or stared blankly into the unraveling probabilities. I'm never alone, Silas replied. You just can't see who's here with me. A counselor tried to rise, but his thoughts looped mid-sentence, mouth repeating. Initiate, initiate, initiate. You built your supremacy on certainty. But humans thrive on chaos. We don't obey patterns. We rewrite them, Silas said, stepping deeper into the chamber. Mavlor slammed his clawed fist into a panel, activating backup warforms from storage. A dozen chrome titans burst from stasis, weapons glowing with quantum dissolution charges. Finally, Silas muttered. The warforms moved. Fast. Brutal. Perfectly synced. Silas raised his hand. The Casimir box let out a sharp chime. The warforms hesitated. What did you do? Mavlor demanded. Gave them an update, Silas replied. Each warform's sensors lit with thousands of contradicting threat models. Silas Vane as a soldier. Silas Vane as dead. As a ghost. As a child. As the box. As the war. The AI inside them spiraled. One warform turned and shot another. Two detonated from internal overload. The rest began targeting imaginary threats that didn't exist. Silas kept walking. You're breaking our technology, Mavlor shouted. No. Your technology's breaking itself. I just gave it a nudge. A Concorde general reached for a weapon, then froze, screaming as her arm calcified into light. Her neural implant mistook time as a variable and crushed itself under a false timestamp. You thought we'd come back with weapons, Silas said, pausing before the throne. We came back with doubt. Mavlor lunged with a blade drawn from his cloak, aiming straight for Silas's heart. Silas didn't move. The blade stopped an inch from his chest, vibrating violently before dissolving into data shards that vanished in the air. You're a virus, Mavlor growled. I'm a mirror, Silas corrected. All I did was show you the version of yourselves that loses. Mavlor trembled. You're not even real. Tell that to the screaming. Outside, Concord fleets began opening fire on each other. Human ships still hadn't fired a single shot. They didn't need to. The Casimir pulse had infected the predictive systems with a question no one dared to answer: what if humanity is the fixed point? Silas turned toward the central data spire, the architectural brain of the Concorde. It towered over the chamber, humming with compressed timelines. He placed his palm on its surface. The Casimir box synchronized. Mavlor screamed, lunging again. This time Silas caught him mid-strike, gripping the alien's wrist with terrifying calm. We gave you centuries to forget us. And now you remember. But too late. You think this is victory? Mavlor snarled. No. This is lesson 1. The box pulsed. Every Concorde fleet received the same broadcast, an unsolvable riddle. The riddle was simple. If every future ends in human victory, was there ever a choice? Simultaneously, the data spire lit up. It projected a new model. A single timeline, infinitely recursive. Each path attempted by the Concorde ended in defeat, collapse, irrelevance, or insanity. The spire began to fracture. Mavlor stared in horror. No, this isn't how the universe works. This is madness. It's humanity, Silas said. We don't follow rules. We survive them. Below the city, servers melted. Predictive engines shut themselves off. Concorde leadership across the galaxy experienced a singular sensation for the first time in eons: uncertainty. You brought down a galactic empire with a question, a counselor whispered, slumped on the floor. No. With 16 minutes of truth, Silas answered. The Casimir box released its final echo, a soft tremor that silenced every oracle system. Not with force. With realization. The realization that a species unbound by pattern was impossible to predict, and therefore impossible to control. A message pinged across the galaxy. It was written in Terran Standard. A single sentence. Next time, don't bet against the storytellers. The chamber fell still. Counselors slumped, trembling, muttering incomplete sentences. Mavlor sat beside his shattered throne, broken blade in hand. You've doomed us. No, Silas said. I've liberated you. You just don't know what to do with freedom. Silas turned, walking toward the exit. A voice behind him rasped. What now? He paused. Now? He said, looking back once. Now you learn to guess. Like the rest of us. And he left. No army. No victory parade. No survivors needed saving. The war didn't end with bodies. It ended with silence, and the terrifying echo of unpredictability. 16 minutes? Humanity had returned. And they hadn't even fired a shot. You killed inevitability, Counselor Threx whispered. His voice cracked under the weight of realization. You didn't defeat us in battle. You dismantled the concept of victory itself. Silas Vane didn't answer. He stood at the center of the chamber, the Casimir box dimly pulsing on his wrist, no longer screaming but vibrating with residual heat. Around him, what remained of the Solarian Concorde's leadership sat dazed, stripped of purpose. Their systems were dark. Their warforms frozen. Their minds still spinning from paradox shock. Threx tried again. You didn't need weapons. You used thought. Looped out. But you can't hold power with confusion. I'm not here to hold anything, Silas said without turning. I came to end the game. Not start another. A silence settled over them like dust after an explosion. Not one of peace, but of hollow quiet, the aftermath of certainty's collapse. Counselor Gur finally stood, trembling. You don't understand what you've done. We govern not through war, but control. The galaxy is stable because we knew how it would unfold. And what did you do when it didn't? Silas asked. No answer. Your control wasn't peace. It was sedation. You turned futures into a spreadsheet and called it order. We weren't supposed to exist anymore, were we? You were a variable, an unstable one. You refused to integrate. No, Silas said. We refuse to become predictable. There's a difference. Gur looked at the shattered spire above them, then back at the man. And now what? You think chaos will bring justice? I don't believe in justice, Silas said. I believe in consequence. The room seemed smaller now. The walls, once shimmering with predictive light, now dulled, blank, as if even the metal had given up trying to guess what would happen next. Then why come at all? Gur asked. You could have destroyed us from orbit. Instead, you walked into the lion's den and opened a box of paradoxes. I needed you to see it. See what? Silas turned to face them fully. What it feels like to not be in control. His voice was level. Not loud. Not threatening. Just undeniable. You ran an empire built on foresight. But your strength was always a weakness, your inability to adapt. You predicted every scenario but the one where someone like me walks in and doesn't follow the rules. You talk like you're a god. Silas laughed once. Short. Bitter. I'm just human. And that's the problem, isn't it? Threx muttered. We underestimated you. No, Silas corrected. You misunderstood us. You assumed chaos was ignorance. That unpredictability meant primitiveness. You never realized that chaos is a weapon. One we mastered because we had to. Gur stepped forward slowly, his voice cautious. Then tell us. Is this the end of the Concord? I didn't end you. You did that yourselves the moment you relied on numbers instead of wisdom. I just walked in and gave the push. And your people? Gur asked. What do they want now? Silas shrugged. Some want revenge. Some want peace. Most don't care about you anymore. This wasn't a message to your council. It was to everyone else watching. What message? He raised the Casimir box. That your gods bleed. That the future doesn't belong to calculators. That certainty is an illusion sold by the powerful to the terrified. He took a breath. For a moment, a flicker of something almost human passed across his face. Regret, maybe. Or memory. I'm not proud of what this took. What I became to do it. But someone had to. Gur nodded slowly, something breaking in his posture. You destroyed more than a government today. Silas lowered his voice. You were never a government. You were a forecast. A sharp hum vibrated through the chamber as the Casimir box powered down. Not with violence. With finality. The box? Threx asked. It's finished, Silas said. Its work is done. It won't turn on again. It was never meant to. What was it? Gur pressed. Silas tapped his temple. A mirror. One that showed you the ending you didn't want to believe. Threx blinked. And what if we rebuild? Silas smiled, but it wasn't kind. Then next time, we won't knock first. No threats. No bluster. Just fact. They understood. Silas walked out without ceremony. No guard stopped him. No system resisted. The palace let him go as if even it had lost the will to predict what came next. Outside, the sky above the capital no longer shimmered with tactical overlays. Human ships hung in silent formation, still refusing to fire, their presence alone a reminder of how little violence it had taken to undo centuries of calculated peace. The war was over. No soldiers died. No battles were fought. No blood was spilled. But an empire died screaming in 16 minutes. And all Silas' fame left behind was silence, and the truth that nothing, not even the future, was safe from the human mind. Silas stood at the edge of the chamber platform, the Casimir box dormant at his wrist, faintly warm but no longer pulsing. Behind him, the council was broken. Not dead, alive, conscious, but stripped bare. They didn't speak anymore. Not out of silence, but because language had failed them. When certainty died, words lost direction. A voice broke through the stillness. So what happens now? It came from the youngest of them, a minor counselor who hadn't spoken once through the entire collapse. Her name didn't matter. Not anymore. Silas didn't turn. That depends on who's still watching. The chamber's sensors were still active, streaming every frame to every species, every corner of Concord-controlled space. Even now, billions were watching. Maybe terrified. Maybe liberated. Maybe both. You planned this, the young counselor said. Not the outcome. The theater. Silas nodded. Because ideas spread faster when they're dramatic. You ruled by prophecy. I gave them a better story. You made us the villain. You wrote that part yourselves, he said. Her breath caught. She was young, idealistic, one of the few who might have believed in order for the sake of stability. Maybe she thought the Concord really was peace. He didn't hate her for that. He pitied her. You'll leave? She asked. I was never here to stay. You won. No, he said. You lost. That's not the same. She stepped closer. Do you think this changes anything? You humiliated us. But chaos doesn't govern. Someone always steps in. Silas looked over his shoulder. Maybe. But from now on, they'll do it knowing the future isn't theirs to write alone. She searched for something to hold on to, but the scaffolding of her belief had already crumbled. We were afraid of you, she admitted. You should have been, he said. But not because of what we might do. Because of what we'd survived. He took a step forward, not toward her, but toward the exit. The path back out of the chamber was clean now, no guards, no resistance. The palace had surrendered not to a man, but to a conclusion it couldn't refute. She followed. Do your people think this was justice? Some do, Silas said. Others think it was just noise. But all of them know we weren't supposed to win. And we did. That's enough. She glanced at the box. And what if someone builds their own version? Learns from your tactics? Repeats your strategy? Silas didn't smile. Then they'll learn what happens when you use a story you don't understand. Outside, the sky was different. Not darker, but quieter. Concord's satellites had gone dark. Predictive beacons offline. The stars looked normal again, random, chaotic, beautiful. He stopped at the edge of the council city, where the transport waited. The human vessel looked old, crude even, compared to the architecture of the Concorde, but it had arrived without permission, without war, and had walked away with the crown. A final voice crackled through the public frequency. It was Mavlor, distant, broken, but audible. You made us question everything. Is that your idea of victory? Silas leaned into the signal. It's not victory. It's humanity. You tried to write a universe without us in it. We reminded you we write back. The signal died. Silas entered the ship. Inside, the AI pilot chirped once. All systems ready, Commander. Standing by for extraction. He took a seat and stared ahead, unmoving. Begin broadcast. Final message. Recording. The AI confirmed. To all Concord systems receiving this signal, he said calmly, the war is over. It ended before you even realized it began. No fleets, no weapons, no corpses. Just a correction. He paused. You forgot what made us dangerous. It wasn't our strength. It wasn't our violence. It was that we could survive being broken. We don't need perfect systems. We don't need control. We only need a crack. Another pause. You saw us as the problem. The unpredictable. The irrational. You thought erasing the unknown made you safe. But the unknown is where we live. It's where we build. It's where we fight. He leaned back. Every empire that thought itself eternal learned too late what happens when you bet against a species that was never meant to win. He ended the recording. The AI locked in the course. Destination? Silas looked out the viewport one last time at the council world now dimmed under its own doubt. Earth, he said. Let's go home. The ship launched silently. And across the galaxy, where systems once bowed to fate, a new idea began to bloom. That maybe, just maybe, there was power in not knowing what comes next. And that sometimes, the scariest enemy, is the one who stopped trying to make sense.